So, Jared, let's go
Yeah.
into hopefully River will stop her annoying barking. I don't know if that's coming through.
We are taking a look at Scott, um, who is in chat. So if you
Oh,
have anything
yes.
else that
There
you
you
want to
are,
add,
Scott
Scott Fenton,
Fenton. Okay.
we're taking a look at his image. And so the caption he put with it, this is, as anybody who has been there knows, this is the Badlands in South Dakota. So he put another item off my bucket list. These are the Badlands in South Dakota. The beauty out there is mind boggling. Having been there, it is a beautiful area.
Wow. That's amazing. Great on this image, Scott. I like the way it just pulls me right in. You what you've got here, I mean, from compositional technique, is you've got a major S curve right in the middle. Yep, there's the S curve. But there's a whole bunch of other ones kind of echoing it. Yeah. There's a lot of geometry in here. So you've got contrast also between, there's a multiple composition tools you're using between the darker, and the lighter. And then you've got the horizon, which gives it perspective. So that kind of puts it all in perspective, like how vast and big this space is. And one of the things we try to do with photography is it's a two-dimensional subject, but we're trying to bring about a three-dimensional view of something because that gives it space and depth. And if you notice how much we enjoy space, we go to places where there's a lot of space. And this image gives us the feeling of a lot of space. So you've accomplished that. That's an emotional response that we have. On the other hand, if you think about space being kind of squashed up in your face, that's not really a pleasant feeling, isn't it? You could use that. I'm not saying every image you have should go in a positive direction. You might want an emotional response of showing, a claustrophobic view. Well, that's fine. But in this case, you've got the expansiveness. And what I like about it is that my eye enters at the bottom and my eye trail naturally just flows up. Yeah, if you kind of see where it just flows all the way up and then into the horizon. So you've really used a lot of tools very well, and I applaud you for that. So well done. Good one, Scott.
All right. Our next one. This is from Grace, and
Hey, Grace.
this was taken at the San Diego Zoo.
Not the
I
San
believe it.
Francisco Zoo, huh?
Nope, San
Okay.
Francisco. Sorry,
See,
I got
I
that
was
wrong. I
going to
knew it was
say,
a San, and I was like, get over there. San Francisco Zoo.
there you go.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of zebras. They have a special meeting in our family. My boys have zebra toys when they're little, and we like them. And in fact, I have a funny story at the San Francisco Zoo. My youngest son, Lance, who you may know as Skate God, if you're a skater, when he first saw a zebra at the San Francisco Zoo, he pointed to it and said, "Bebra, Bebra, Bebra." So he didn't know that there were actually real animals. He just thought it was a stuffed animal. Anyway, this is a cool picture. I like the reflection. Yeah, I love that reflection, and I love zebras. The reflection, just kind of gives it another layer. Now, I don't know, am I going to offend people if they're purists? Dan Milner wouldn't like this, but I would probably remove those rocks in the foreground only because they just pull my eye away. If you want to use the Photoshop AI beta, you could get rid of it, and it will eventually, if you persist with it, it will replace. It does. It does an interesting thing. Sometimes it replaces it with something weird. But I notice if you just keep persisting, I've had to do 9 different attempts, and it finally got what I wanted. That's just if you wanted to do that. The only other, in terms of composing it, I'd probably say compose with your feet, zoom with your feet, and just get around the rocks. Move over to the left a little bit, just again because they do pull my eye away from the main thing, which is I want to see the zebra. So that in your composition, just step over a little bit. Remember what Bob Holmes said, you're responsible for everything in the frame, and make sure you do scan the whole frame. And that's where you would see that and go, oh, wait, I don't want that in there. Your composition is under your control. So sometimes it's moving left, sometimes it's moving to the right. Moving in wouldn't really, you're going to lose space there with the zebra, so that might not be the right thing. And you might be completely limited. I'm saying all this, you may be just completely limited to where you can move because you're in a zoo after all. But those are just some thoughts. I really like the image. I love the feeling of that zebra, the stripes. We've got a lot of geometry. We've got contrast. We've got reflection. Those are all compositional tools. So good one.
I have a question, Mark.
Yeah.
There's something I was thinking of. What about, because let's say you didn't want to remove the rock, you didn't want to edit this. What about making this black and white? Because I feel like part of what makes the rock distracting is the color that's on it.
True.
And your zebra doesn't have any color anyways.
Yeah.
So maybe that would help at least.
That's a good point. Good point. And it would definitely keep you're right. The color is the main thing that pulls your eye there. So yeah, that's something to test out for sure.
Yeah. Might want to try that out and post your results, Grace.
Yeah. Try both of those things out and see what you come up with. And if you haven't played around with the Photoshop beta, it's a really interesting tool. I've used it for a couple of things. Like if I need a thumbnail, I've gone from a portrait to a landscape, and it actually will fill in what isn't there. It's kind of amazing that it can do that. So it's a tool. We're going to all be using AI. We might as well regard it as a tool and not as an evil thing. If you've watched Terminator, you go, wow, this is the beginning of the end when we have AI that can control our what we're doing. But it's a whole new set of tools. Okay, so let's see what's next here.
This is from our friend Yael. I believe that's how you pronounce it. No caption with this. And yeah, here's the image.
Yeah, so it's an old rusty boat, looks like, it's interesting. I guess those are part of the mast. It's hard to say what that is. Or those were added later. I don't know.
I believe she's in chat, so if you want to add any additional information,
yeah,
do in chat.
It's an interesting kind of, if you look at it, almost like an impressionistic image. If you remember how the Impressionists took little dots, go look at them and use little dots to create their paintings. And that's the first thing I think of here is it's really an impressionistic, all these little dots. And use paintings as a model for your photography. Because remember that the art of photography really only emerged kind of about almost 200 years ago. It was really like 1837, I think is the date that comes to my mind. So 200 years compared to how long painters have been around, several thousand years. So there's a lot more know-how and knowledge that's been acquired by the painters, and you can pull that into your photography mindset. It's part of your toolkit. So, it's interesting in that regard. What I find missing, and I have to give you my impression, is I don't have a center of attention. There's kind of the hole in the boat, which is interesting. And I'm looking through, but I don't quite have a main focal point that draws me in. Having a hole is a way of framing. It's a framing technique. But what are we framing? So we've got the two posts there, but they're not all that interesting. So what would make it interesting is something in the middle there, probably an animal. And sometimes it just takes patience. You might have to wait a long time. Maybe a bird flies into the frame, or something happens. And that's the art of composition, is you come across something and you go, wow, that's a cool setting, but it hasn't all come together yet. And maybe you just wait and wait and wait, and you get lucky. So that's my only advice. You've set the stage. Let's get a focal point, or Bob Holmes calls it a punctuation point, something that your eye immediately goes to. But thank you for sending that in, and bravo on that impressionistic feel to the photograph.
Yeah.
Please subscribe and enable the bell so you don't miss any of our new shows. Like the video and please share it and leave your comments. I love hearing from you. And remember to get out and capture your own images of life.